Hello everyone, this is David Green. I'm the author of the book Zero Carbon Home. This is a recording of the first part of my coaching training program, which will train volunteers to become certified zero carbon coaches to help other homeowners cut their carbon footprints to zero as well. On our house, we cut our carbon footprint to zero by adding heat pumps, insulation, triple glazed windows, and solar panels. We also cut our heating and electricity bills to zero, from about $11,500 a year in the early years to zero and in fact slightly negative for 2019. Just a bit about me. I have a degree in physics from Oxford University. I'm British if you can't tell by my accent. I have an MBA from Harvard Business School. I founded and was CEO of 2 different biotechnology companies. I took both of them public. That gives me the background in finance to be able to evaluate the investments and the background in physics to be able to analyze which things actually work on your house. I wrote 2 books, one about the house, one about the pool, both of which now have zero carbon footprints. And I don't work for or get paid by any supplier of equipment, so I'm completely independent. And I'm not going to tell you to eat vegetarian or vote for Al Gore. We're just going to focus on saving money. So the key to going zero is to cut your house's energy use so much you can generate it all from solar panels on your roof, cut it with insulation, triple glazed windows, heat pumps and solar panels, and do them in that order is the best way to do it. These are the overall results. We saved about $11,000 to $11,500 a year and 43 tons of carbon dioxide. This really delivers the triple bottom line: zero pollution for the people, zero carbon for the planet, and zero bills for you. And this is financially, we spent about $75,000, pays for itself in about 6 years with a return on investment after tax of about 15%. And that's not counting the increase in the house price caused by this reduction in bills. There's lots of free stuff available, including a PDF of the slides for the webinar, a YouTube recording of the webinar, searchable Q&A from previous webinars, all on my website, or you can email me questions yourself. This is the training session.
Sorry. So you're absolutely right. Sherburne and all of Massachusetts really has some of the highest electricity rates in the nation. And that makes the case for things like heat pumps actually adverse compared to somewhere where they're, say, 14 cents a kilowatt hour. On the other hand, it makes the case for solar panels much better because you're saving 23 cents every time you produce a kilowatt hour versus saving 14 cents in Chicago or 10 cents in Louisiana. So it sort of swings and roundabouts. It cuts both ways. Oil, we're stuck with oil because we don't have natural gas infrastructure in either Sherburne or Dover. Most towns around us do. So if you go one town over to Natick, hey, Colleen, do you have natural gas?
Do not.
No.
But a lot of it, yeah, it's mixed. It's mixed here.
Okay, so
I'm on propane though.
So sometimes have a mix, and then there are also municipal light and power plants like Wellesley. If you cross the border, and I drive up Route 16 from Dover to Wellesley, my electricity rate falls in half by crossing the border, because the municipal light and power plant there produces power or sells power at about 12 to 14 cents per kilowatt hour. So one of the things you're highlighting, Scott, is absolutely correct. These things are very local. It depends on your utility company. It depends on the local installers. It depends on the solar panels. And that's why I think this has to be a neighborhood type of initiative with people in the town consulting to people in the town, because everything changes. It'd be very hard for me to get a group of people who were really comfortable and fluent and confident in advising people in Dover to then go and do the same in Wellesley. Because when that electricity price falls in half, you need to really think differently about the trade-offs between heat pumps and solar panels. So we're starting to get into some of the financial discussions about what makes financial sense and economic sense, which we'll get into in more detail as we go through the program. But let's just move on to another question now. But Scott, you raise excellent questions there about the local situation and how these things need to be tailored to the local situation.
Well, I've got one more quick question.
Okay.
I don't want to dominate things, but I think in the question and answer session, you were asked about heat pumps and how well they work during extremely cold weather. And I think you gave out a number of 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that right?
For my own home, the heat pumps alone will not keep it at 70 degrees Fahrenheit if it's below about 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside.
Okay. I just wanted to verify that.
Yeah, so that is correct. Now, that's worth pointing out, though, Scott, because a lot of people believe the Kool-Aid, they've drunk the Kool-Aid issued by Mitsubishi. And
Yeah.
Mitsubishi is one of the biggest manufacturers of heat pumps, and they state in their marketing literature that it will work down to minus 14 degrees Fahrenheit, which is unbelievably cold. We never get minus 14 degrees Fahrenheit here in Dover and Sherburne.
Well, when you say Mitsubishi, you're talking about mini splits, right?
That is definitely what they say about their mini splits. I don't know if they say the same thing about their ducted units, but they definitely say that about the mini splits. But in my experience, and I have Bosch units at my own house, and we have a rental property in Dover that is a ductless mini split system, which is the Mitsubishi system, and it's the hyperheat system, and they say it's minus 14 degrees Fahrenheit. That has the same issue as our house. It will heat the house only to 70 degrees when the outside temperature is above 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think the homeowner's definition of work is always, is my house warm? The engineer might have a definition of work. A Mitsubishi engineer might say, well, it's working. I mean, the fan's on, it's going round and round and round, it's transferring heat. But the homeowner says, well, it's not working for me. And this, who is it who had the problem with a 50-degree house?
Cindy.
Cindy, thank you.
Me.
So this may be part of the problem, is that the heat pump just doesn't have the output necessary in cold weather to heat your house to 70 degrees. It is working in some geeky engineering sense of the word, but it's not working in your sense of the word of just to keep my house warm. So this is one of the issues we're going to come across. It's particularly true of heat pumps, but I think it's true of most of these technologies. They are oversold by the manufacturers. Okay, guess what? Like, no big surprise, right? Manufacturers exaggerate the benefits of their products. Well, but it can become a critical problem with heat pumps if you buy it believing it's going to heat your house to minus 14 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've had plenty of people on call say, well, I've got the Mitsubishi Hyperheat and it works down to minus 14. Like, yes, the condenser does work at that temperature, but it won't keep your house warm. And people then get very upset with the manufacturers. They tell all their friends, and the adoption of heat pumps stops. So there are a lot of sort of myths and misconceptions out there. That is one of them. Probably the biggest single one actually is in the entire field of heat pumps, insulation, triple glazed windows, and solar panels. But there are other sort of myths around triple glazed windows and solar panels that we'll get to as we go through this this program. All right, Scott, can we move on? Let's see if anybody's got any other questions.
I have a question. I want to make sure I understand this. It was my understanding that what we're doing is basically trying to improve on what Scott's experience was with Mass Save as a neighbor-to-neighbor project, and really stress the neighbor-to-neighbor as an educational. We did the due diligence. You don't have to. We're not selling anything in particular except decrease carbon footprint. Is that all correct?
Yes, that's all correct. All correct, Katie.
And I liked your presentation, that thing about hits. It's easy to remember. It's very straightforward. I need to learn about, the financial part of it, but I put solar on my old farmhouse in Sherburne. I have a south facing roof. It's not terribly big. I think we got 27 panels. I've been receiving money back since it went up, winter and summer. And I have double glazed windows. We replaced the old windows, and I keep my thermostat at 67 and I'm comfortable. I never change it. So it's very, very tight.
So would you say you're happy with your current situation with the house, or do you think there's anything you could or should be doing?
I use oil heat, and if I could mitigate that, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
Okay.
But I live in a old barn that was built probably in the 1890s. It was moved up from the big farm on Washington Street that goes through to Maple Street. I abut that farm. I get 14 acres without property taxes that I get to enjoy. But it's an old house. It had the old windows, it has old floors, it has a lot that is not, current. I wasn't aware that there was such a thing as a heat pump. I mean, I've seen them. I just never questioned them. Well, I'm not that interested in HVAC, I guess, but
Well, let me just
I'd like
comment
to
on
learn
that,
about.
Katie, and then we'll. I want to get through other questions to make sure we stay on time tonight. But just a couple of comments, like the kind of things, hearing you say that, the kind of things that I'm starting to think about. You said you've got double glazed windows. There's nothing wrong with double glazed windows, right? Of course, if you're replacing them, triple glazed is better than double glazed, but there's no point ripping out perfectly good double glazed windows. It's going to be way too expensive. One of those things that makes energy sense but makes no financial sense. Um, so you've got some solar panels already. I'm guessing you're on oil heating and oil furnace. Is that right? And probably for your hot water as well as for your home air, right? Okay. So what that suggests to me is there's probably some upside in your house in improving the insulation. That depends how much was done at the time when you did the renovation. But let's leave that as a question mark for things to be further explored. There's definitely an option for you to upgrade your windows by using window inserts, which is not putting in a full triple glazed window, but adding a panel of glass or plastic from the inside into the frame from the inside, and that will add a panel. So you've now got 3 panels rather than 2 panels, and that works particularly well on drafty windows. If you've got sash windows, the type of window that goes up and down, not in and out, which a lot of people do in older houses, those are terribly difficult to seal. So you tend to get a lot of drafts through them. So I can sort of see some things that might work to help reduce your energy load on your house. And then the obvious one is the heat pump, because you've got an oil furnace today. You've got some solar, that's great. Is there room for more solar on that south roof of your barn?
No, we maxed it out.
You maxed it out, okay. So that would then become like a financial consideration, because the energy consideration would be fairly obvious. If you've got a heat pump, it would save you money and save you a carbon footprint. But is it going to make financial sense to put extra panels somewhere on your property because you've already taken the best place in that south-facing roof?
So you need panels for a heat pump?
You need electricity for a heat pump. If you use electricity from Eversource at 23 cents per kilowatt hour, it's going to be expensive, Katie. It's going to cut your carbon footprint, but it's going to be expensive. Like Scott was saying earlier, he was kind of shocked that electricity here is so expensive. Well, it is. And that makes heat pumps less financially viable because the electricity to run them is so expensive, unless you have solar panels. Your solar panels are probably generating electricity for you, Katie, at maybe 5, 6, 7 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you use that cheap electricity to power your heat pump, which has 2.5 times efficiency, you'll go from, let's say, 7 cents per kilowatt hour to 2 cents per kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour of heat in your house. That's a bit complicated, but 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour of heat in the house is half the cost of natural gas, and it's 1/3 of the cost of heating oil. So you could save 2/3 of your money you're spending on heating oil every month in the wintertime. I'm sure right now it's a painful check to write every month to your heating oil company by using a heat pump with solar panels. But if you did a heat pump with Eversource electricity, you'd probably increase your bill. It probably wouldn't make it go down very much. It would make the carbon footprint go down, and you might be sort of kind of break even on the money. But that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about, and that's really combining the financial stuff with the actual technologies, because you've already got solar, you've already got reasonable windows, so there's some things you can do to tighten it up. But the big one is probably going to be replacing your oil furnace, or supplementing your oil furnace, not replacing it, supplementing it with a heat pump. But then unless you get some extra solar panels, it's going to cost you a fortune. But I'll take that back. It's going to cost you more than you're currently paying.
Now, how many solar panels would it take to run a heat pump?
I mean, ballpark, probably about the same as you've already got. So you've got 27, it's probably another 20. It's not another 1 or 2, it's not another 100. It's something in that ballpark. But this is where you have to get into some calculations about how much heat is your house losing and how much energy do you need to run your heat pump. And that's for either the next Zoom lesson or the one after that. We're going to talk about energy modeling, and how do you get some numerical calculations on this so you can make good financial decisions for the homeowner.
Okay, and I have a very specific question. If I'm not mistaken, in the webinar, you mentioned that heat pumps can cost as little as $3,000, but your cost for the heat pump was $26,000.
That's correct. So both
well-
answers are correct, Katie. So the way I did it is two different ways. If you write a check to an installer for 2 heat pumps for a ducted house, one for the upstairs, one for the downstairs, it'll be about 20 to 25,000. If you wrote a check to an installer for AC units, it'd be around 15, something 12, 15, something like that. So the difference is about, say, 8,000 between replacing your AC units and replacing them with heat pumps. So for someone who's got AC units, like someone, I'm terrible at remembering names, but someone earlier said they had their 2008 issue.
I did.
AC,
Cindy.
thank you, Cindy. Air conditioning units, and you might at some point be thinking about replacing those. Well, that is a perfect time to be thinking about upgrading to heat pumps, because you're looking at an expense of maybe 15 to 18,000 to replace the AC units. The additional cost of replacing them with heat pumps is maybe another 8,000 on top.
Don't have central air. So they need to put the ducts in. That's what the cost is.
Or you go with a different technology called a mini split, which doesn't use the ductwork. So we'll put that aside. We'll come back to that, Katie. Let's just carry on with the Cindy example. So if you're looking at replacing AC units, you're already looking at paying out 15,000. It might cost you, let's say, 23 to go and get the heat pumps rather than the AC units. But heat pump you can get with the heat loan, which is a subsidized loan from the state of Massachusetts, with has 0% interest. 0 interest. Now, if you took the money that you were going to spend on the heat pump and you invested it, you could probably get 3%, and that 3% over 7 years would be worth about another $5,000. So you can knock off an additional $5,000 because of the free financing. So no cash up front, you take the free loan, and you don't pay any interest on that loan, and it's 7 years. So if you take the incremental costs at $8,000, knock off $5,000 that you're saving by getting the free financing, which you can't get for the AC units, but you can get for the heat pumps, and you're down to $3,000 as the true incremental cost of heat pumps compared to AC unit replacement. That's a bit of a long answer, but you can start to see how the technological choices actually really dovetail with the financial choices, because some things like heat pumps are subsidized, heavily subsidized, in this case with a free loan, but AC units are not. And that brings down the cost difference between replacing AC units and adding heat pumps to $3,000, which is really not very much when you're getting all of this additional heating capacity at a much lower carbon footprint and much lower cost than you would with an AC unit and a fossil fuel furnace.
Okay. Thank you.
So, good question, Katie. So, like, hang on to it. Those are my initial thoughts, but this is exactly the kind of thing we're going to work through with you and your coach. Anybody else? Yeah, Nicole, go ahead.
Sure. I've written down a bunch of questions. I'm kind of like, I think these are questions that someone who's just starting out interested in solar. I've had someone come out and quote before when the town was doing that group promotion thing.
Yeah.
And I had Mass Save come out. I don't know if I fully understood it, but the guy just changed my light bulbs and checked my insulation and said, you know, that it was there, even though I wasn't quite sure. And that was it. And I guess you can use that piece of paper that they came, and then you can qualify for discounts, but I never went anywhere with it. And I have a very old furnace, and we use a lot of electricity. I have a big family. We have a pool. We have just, you know, I have a lot of costs, and the oil furnace is just so expensive. We have like one zone for the whole house. So it's like we're heating the downstairs in the middle of the winter while we're sleeping, which is so stupid. And yeah. And so I know I need to change it. And I'm very interested in getting solar panels. But this is some of the questions that I have. I think other people would have is, I'm kind of like overwhelmed by how many different solar companies there are. who do you go with? Who do you trust? You know, what's the right, are they going to install it correctly? I've talked to people who've, you know, had it installed incorrectly, or they installed the wrong type of panels. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. You know, the changing technology, I kind of mentioned that before. I'm always like, should I wait? Should I wait? Is it going to get, you know, less bulky or more streamlined or whatever? Like Tesla's come out with those really neat shingles. I don't know if you've seen those. And I'm like, oh, that looks really nice, you know, on your house. Then I see Tesla has these new battery pack things. I don't know what those are, but I'm like, what is this technology? Should I be doing that? I wonder if like the new president focused on climate change, are there going to be more financial incentives coming in? And is that worth waiting a little bit to see if that happens? So that's kind of on my mind. I also have a very large field in the back of my house, and I'm thinking that I'd like to put the solar panels in the field. And so I don't know anything about that, but like, is that way more expensive than putting them on your home, or does it matter? That's something I wanted to look into. Can the heat pumps, I had only heard about geothermal heat pumps, which I thought, I hadn't heard the best things about them financially. And David, you kind of hit that home when I listened to your presentation. So I was really interested in these heat pumps, but can they fit seamlessly into your heating system? Not that mine doesn't need to be changed, and the zones obviously need to be changed, but you know, those are kind of questions like, is this going to bring up all these other costs?
Okay, can I just pause there, Nicole?
Yeah, that's good. That's
You've
probably
got a long list of questions, all right? But let's just take this step by step by step. Each one of those questions has an answer, and they're not hard to answer. We just got to go through each one step by step and answer those questions. So let me just, like, off the top of my head, just give me a few things to think about. So you've got a pool. Okay, pools are a separate topic. They can be total energy hogs. I have a swimming pool. It was a massive electricity hog, and I cut the carbon footprint on my swimming pool to 0 as well. And it's saving me $3,000 a year on electricity and propane. Okay, so you can do this on pools too, but there's a separate recipe book for that.
Okay.
And I don't really want to cover that here because it's going to distract us, and so few people have pools. But I just want to let you know, right, you can do this on a pool and save tons of money. And what I found was the return on investment was actually better on a pool than it was on a house. But that's a separate topic of conversation, okay?
great.
Yeah, you've definitely got problems with your heating system. I know you know that, right? No surprise. But what I've found is you can certainly fix one problem, fix the heating system, but you'll be much better off, Nicole, if you pursue more of a holistic approach for your entire house and look at the whole system. Like, what is your installation? What have you got for windows? How are the drafts in your house? And deal with this piece by piece by piece. Because if you start with reducing the energy load by better insulation, reducing the drafts, then maybe think about using a heat pump to at least supplement your furnace. Keep the furnace in place because you're not going to be able to get to using only heat pumps in your house. You can do that on new construction. It's almost impossible on a retrofit. You just can't get it tight enough and get enough insulation into the house. But you can, so that would become more of a financial decision, right? I mean, I have absolute confidence just hearing you talk, Nicole, that a heat pump would cut your energy use and would cut your carbon footprint. But is it going to make financial sense for you? Don't really know. And that's where we're going to get on to combining the financial side with the energy side, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to advise you to do anything stupid, do anything that's not going to make financial sense for you. Or at the very least, if you were my client, I would show you what the returns are going to be, the investment returns are going to be for each of the things you want to do, and then you decide which things make sense for you. Right. I can't really tell you what things make financial sense for you, but you can at least lay out the options for someone and say, look, this is going to cost you that much money. It's going to have a good return on investment, but this is going to be better. And then let them make the decision as to what is right for them. And a lot of people either don't want to or can't afford to do everything.
Right.
So the question as a coach becomes, well, what makes the most sense for you? What is the first thing you should do? Maybe you come to the second thing next year. What can you do right now that's going to really help your person, your family in your house. So there were so many other things you said. I could talk about Tesla shingles and batteries. That's in the 201 class, right? This is the 101 class. We'll get to the 201 and 301 later on. But yes, Tesla has created a big stir around their shingles. There was a recent report of a Tesla employee who put the shingles on his roof, or built a house with the shingles. And he said, oh, I think this is a quote, I think they're great value for money. They cost 35% more than a new roof and solar panels. I mean, that makes
He's a great salesman.
Right. So how can you
That's
possibly say this makes financial sense and it costs 35% more in the same sentence?
You
Okay.
get a discount, company discount.
Yeah, maybe. So I would be very skeptical of that. I wouldn't rule it out, but right now I would say you're much better off with traditional 3 foot by 5 foot blue-black solar panels. You sort of gave the impression overall that you were just sort of overwhelmed by all this. There's so much stuff out there. And Nicole, you are like most people.
Yeah.
Most people have some sense they can be doing something to cut their carbon footprint. They don't have much sense they can save money, but that's how we're going to help them to understand. These things will save you money, those things won't. But they're just as confused as you about, is geothermal the right thing? Is double glazed good? Is triple glazed good? What is triple glazed? Those are exactly the kind of questions I get from people who often feel overwhelmed. There's too many choices out there, and there's no one independent who's knowledgeable, like you all will be, to help them through it. So your partner, Nicole, will help you through this, but then hopefully you'll have some realization, I can help other people through this too, because now I understand it.
Well, that was kind of where I was going with this. I'm like, I can learn so much and then, be able to share that knowledge when we get there.
That's exactly right. Okay, we've got a few more minutes of this. I'm not. Maybe we can try the breakout groups. I think we should probably try it because I'm not sure it's going to work. Let's take one more question, and then we'll try doing the breakout groups and at least get the pairs going.
Our question, real quick and easy. How much of this is going to be virtual?
All of this because we're still in COVID lockdown.
Okay.
And there's actually a second reason, Katie, is because I actually intended to record this from the start. Obviously, this is not very scalable right now. Maybe I think about 15 coaches would work for Sherburne, getting Sherburne to net zero by 2050. So we'll do another round of coaching once we've gone through this and worked out the bugs in the program, and we might get Sherburne there. But then what about Natick? What about Wellesley? What about Dover? And I can't do this on my own. So in order to scale this up, I want to record everything and put it on YouTube and then allow other people to access these. And maybe we can sort of get a snowball rolling that where I don't become the bottleneck anymore. So that's sort of my goal, Katie, is to do it by Zoom, in part because it's COVID, but part because I can then record it all and have them on YouTube and other people can see them whenever they want to. Okay,
Also,
let's get another question on sort of the book and on the webinar and heat pumps and solar panels and that kind of stuff.
I wanted to make a different kind of comment and a different role as sort of the energy committee. In terms of supporting this whole coaching process, there's issues you brought up, especially Scott and others, that have come up in other meetings that I've been to, where we're trying to rely on Mass Save as one of the building blocks to get going with coaching other people. It's come up with a lot of towns, the issue of what's the quality of the Mass Save audit. And what has come up is that towns can, and something that it's now a little bit higher on my list in terms of supporting this, is that you can actually figure out, you can actually be more specific about who's the firm, what firm is doing the Mass Save audits. And so it's now a little bit more higher on the list to sort of figure out whether we can find a good firm that'll do the Mass Save audits for Sherborne, so that you get a better quality audit to base your work on. And that also includes the fact that when you get to the installers, you can also, because I've done a test for myself, I've done Mass Save as part of testing to see what it's like, but that and learning the process and haranguing them, the fact that Mass Save also, they don't tell you as much, but you can actually, for the installers for insulation and all that, you don't have to go what they give you. They have a long list, and we can find a short list of our own as to who are the good insulation installers, who are the good weatherizers, so that when you're working as a coach, you basically hopefully have a better starting point, that hopefully by the time you're through with all this, we'll have a better starting point as to who's doing the audit, and then a better list of who will then do the follow-up insulation and other kind of stuff. And that's with Mass Save. And then, but that also to extend the idea that we've looked into from the Energy Committee side of to what extent do we find some recommended installers? Because everybody's always hung up on, well, who's the installer to do it? Am I going to get screwed? Am I going to get a lousy job? I mean, and how do you even pick it? That in some parallel to what you're learning here, that some work will be done so that when you're doing it, there's more support and a better net back up as to what you're talking to people about. And we can maybe think about whether there's some set of installers that we've, for solar, here's 3 people that have sort of pre-qualified that you could work with. So that's a whole other process to make what you guys do work a lot better. And it's certainly highlighted. So, but that's me as in another role that something else is going on that'll help you guys do a better job.
Thank you, Michael. That is exactly the way I envision this going, is that we, is not quite sure who we is at this point, but we end up giving you guys a list of at least 3 contractors for each one of the technologies that are at least reasonably well qualified. We at least sorted the bad actors out, and maybe we've even negotiated a better rate with them. So for instance, one of the installers I have used personally is Rodenheiser. Rodenheiser is kind of thrilled with the idea that I keep referring clients to them because it's more business for them without doing any marketing. And they've actually offered for my clients, not for me personally, but for my clients to get an extra 1-year warranty on the installation. So what that says to me is, without me even asking for a better deal, I think us, the town of Sherburne, when we act together, we could probably negotiate a better deal with these guys. Now, we haven't done that yet because it's too early in the program. But as we get deeper into this, I think we'll be able to get at least a screening of the contractors, so we sort out the bad actors, and hopefully go beyond that and say, this is a deal for the town of Sherburne. So I watch this space. That's something that's going on. We're not there yet, but I think we can probably get there. Okay, I think we're going to have to pause here for questions, because what I'm going to try to do is get you into the breakout groups. And the whole idea here is that you share with your coach what you want to do on your house. So just like we've been discussing right there, the issues that come up. So we start to build a set of questions that are going to need to be answered on your house. And Dorothy, I think we said you're going to be with Katie, right?
With me, with Katie.
So Dorothy and Katie are going to be together. So I think what's going to happen, but I'm not sure.
All right, I'm back.
Hi, Nicole. Welcome back.
I think we're both coming back now. I just clicked the button. But yeah, really interesting conversation about our homes. Neat. So, we've got actually similar issues, very similar issues. So,
so who are you with, Nicole?
Scott.
Scott, right.
I don't know where he went.
They're all coming back now. They're all coming back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
That countdown keeps you accountable. Like,
I know. I know. I apologize a bit for that. I think it was a little bit, I put a little too little time for that, but we'll just get started, okay?
Yeah.
We'll get started, then we'll follow up with a similar format next time, but we'll spend more and more time in the coaching sessions and less time with like general Q&A. So I want to keep us on time tonight. So I've got a few things to have to cover before we go. So one thing that I didn't mention is everyone needs to sign a disclosure statement or waiver statement, which I will email to everyone after, okay? And this is something you're going to have to get from your clients when we go out into the real world. So one of the things I wanted to have happen is each of you as the coach and the client is going to get your client to sign that as the coach. I'll email it out to everyone. But I think this might cause a few issues with people because they're, what is this? Why am I signing this? So this is part of the coaching process. And if there are concerns or questions you have that come up, from this mysterious document, which isn't mysterious, but I think people might have questions. So this is going to be how we're going to reflect a bit on the coaching process itself. And the first step in that coaching process is getting the client to sign that waiver. So I'm going to email it to you afterwards. Also, I'd intended for people to actually book a mass save audit with their client. Now, you probably didn't get that because it was too much, not enough time to do it. So that will become a very small homework assignment for you to help your coach, sorry, for you as the coach to help your client to get to book a mass save audit. Because even though Scott and others have voiced concerns about mass save, it's at least like ground zero. It's at least a place to start. Now, one of the things I hope you'll learn as we go through this is I think you will eventually be able to do much better than mass save does on the audit side. But right now, let's start with the mass save audit, and then we'll build on that in the future.
What happens if you're actually going to have people do it? Because even though somebody has done it recently and they can't get it again.
If you've done it recently, just dig up what you had. If you can't get a new mass save audit, but as coaches, you're going to be helping your clients to at least book the mass save audit. So I like everyone to like go through the motions of doing it. But if you've got a recent mass save audit, just share it with your coach. So let me just take a couple of minutes just to get feedback from people on how the breakout sessions went. I don't just want to shout how it went. Was it worth doing?
I just don't feel like I know anything yet. I don't feel qualified to coach yet. Dorothea was the bomb, though. She was great. I mean, you cut her off in the middle of what she was saying, but that's the way breakout rooms go.
Yeah, and this is just getting started. So we're just getting our feet wet here. But I wanted to make sure we had the coaching client relationship set up so we can start to talk about the agenda that each client has. So we can work through real examples on real houses and not be dealing with some theoretical stuff, but just dealing with real problems with real people in real houses. And then we'll reflect on the coaching process as well as the technological and financial aspects. So this is a way that we can, I think, learn more than we would if this is just a lecture or something. Any other reflections or just on the meeting so far? Is there anything I could do to make this better, more productive, more useful, more educational the next time we do it? Don't be shy.
David, I think you're doing a fantastic job, I must say.
Okay, great.
I'm impressed. This is great.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott.
I'm a numbers lady. I'd like to learn more, David, about costs, like air source heat pumps versus mini splits and things like that. So once you meet with the client first time, you know, they often tell you, I cannot spend more than $15,000, nor am I. And then immediately you can, you know, throw things out of the window, so to speak, or so. That would be interesting to me.
Okay, let me just pause and respond to that. I'm not going to answer, but just respond to it. So my plan is to get our knowledge of which things are likely to work, like heat pumps installation, AAA windows, which things are not likely to work, like geothermal. We get a knowledge around those things first, and then we start looking at the more detailed finance side.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, nobody's got infinite money and nobody's got infinite time. So we're all going to have to make trade-offs. And at the very least, it's going to be, what should I do first? Even if someone says, I want to do everything, and some people will, they're still going to say, well, what do I do first? And that requires some way of prioritizing. And the way I did it, which I think is the right way to do it, is to use financial analysis to make that prioritization. So I'm sort of saving that a bit for later, although what we found in the conversation tonight is, wow, the things are just so intertwined, you probably can't separate them. But from a point of view of not just dumping everything on everyone all at once, I was trying to take it step by step as we work through it. But I think you should just keep asking whatever questions you've got, and we'll deal with real stuff. But my plan is to try to do the technology side first and the financial side second.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, like I keep imagining a cheat sheet of like existing systems, and then like what are the likely possibilities, right? Because if you already have ducted forced air with whatever furnace you have, like heat pumps could probably slot right in. Whereas if you have, hot water baseboards, it's a whole different thing. And so I keep kind of wondering, yeah, what are all the like likely situations, existing technologies, and then what are the top options for each of them?
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. I could put together something like that, but at least be it's not going to be the answer, but it might at least like narrow down to some of the more likely outcomes. I think it's a very good idea, Colleen. I will work on that's my homework assignment for next week. I will try to get some thoughts down on what makes the most sense.
David, I think Colleen's making a great point, because heat pumps can only be utilized in two ways. One of them is with mini splits or ductless, that's it. Or if you have a furnace air handler inside with a ducting system inside the envelope of the house. It won't work with hydronic, and it won't work by putting a heat pump A-frame in an air conditioning system that's in your attic.
Yep. Okay.
And that's what Scott and I were talking about, that we both have similar systems. And I'm like, I didn't know that's not going to work with our house. So what are our alternatives? And that cheat sheet of like what fits in with what is perfect. So like, let us know what our options are.
Okay, so I'll take that as my homework assignment. I just want to warn you up front, there's not going to be a one-to-one solution for every situation, because these, there's going to be like biases and things that are more likely, as Scott says. But it starts a bit complicated. It becomes like a 3D chess game, because if your say heat pump is in the attic and it's not within the thermal envelope, it's not inside the insulation, it's going to be a terrible performing system. But what if you insulate your attic? Well, now you're starting to get sort of compound answers that work under these circumstances. So anyway, let me at least get a first draft together. It's not going to be perfect, but I agree with you. Having some kind of lay of the land would be helpful in narrowing down the choices. And so we don't end up with the situation Nicole is in, which is just like overwhelmed with choice. There's so much stuff out there. And there's, in my opinion, Nicole, there's so much misinformation out there, often perpetrated by a vendor of a particular technology. Like I sell heat pumps, so I'll tell you why they're fantastic, and they miss out on why you need to have solar panels at the same time. So I agree. So that'll be my homework assignment. Let's just say one more comment and then totally wrap up. No other comments? All right.
Well, I have a question for Scott. Scott, can you explain the conversation that you had with Nicole about why a heat pump won't work in an air handler in an attic?
Assuming your ducting system for your air conditioning that's in your attic is outside of the envelope of the house. In other words, the envelope of the house is your insulation barrier. And in this area, quite a few homeowners have retrofitted air conditioning in the attic by putting a ducting system in and cutting holes in the ceilings and putting in registers. Now, if you ran heated air through those ducts, you would get a lot of heat loss, which would then melt the snow, and you would get ice damming, and you would get huge icicles and that kind of thing, which none of us would want, and they're dangerous and they cause a lot of damage.
Thank you.
Now, David, I have one more homework item for you.
Okay.
If a homeowner reduces their carbon footprint by putting in mini splits or retrofits into their furnace, and they decommission their boiler, now they have no hot water.
Yep.
Okay, what are we going to do about the hot water?
All right, good question. I'm not going to answer right now because I want to finish on time, but there's very good answers to that question, Scott, but not right now. Okay,
I
so
don't understand the question, so hopefully we're going to.
That's right. That's one of the benefits of this, is that hearing other people's questions.
Mm.
Because people have very, very different concerns and questions. And this is what I've found is like everyone's question is different. And until that person's question gets answered, they're not going to do anything. And this is why we need coaching. This is why we need neighborhood coaching, because each person's house is different. And even if it is the same as somebody else's house, they think it's different. And until they get their question answered, they're not going to install anything that an installer is telling them to install. So this is why we need a program exactly like this. So just a couple of brief wrap-up things. So for the next meeting next Tuesday, the homework assignment for all of you guys, because I've done it already, is to read the book. Now, because you've already been to the webinar, you've got the big picture, right? You've got the hits, the heat pumps, the installation, AAA's windows, solar panels. You know the big picture. So the book's going to be easy reading for you because you've got the concepts already. But there's a lot more detail in the book than there is in the webinar. The webinar is 45 minutes. The book will take you 2 hours to read. Okay, and that's not saying you try to work through all the examples, but it's like it'll take about 2 hours to read. So it's a longer homework assignment this week than for today's or for future ones. And bring your questions that arise from the book to next week's webinar, and also write them down so you can give them to your coach. Okay, so there's two things. One, bring the questions for this session. We'll all have a conversation about them, but write them down for your coach as well. And then I'll email out the disclosure statement and the mass save order information. And just the final thing is, if you have any questions, you wake up in the middle of the night with some question either about your house or about this program, then please just email me or call my cell phone. I think you all have my cell phone number and my email address. Just get in touch, and I'll hopefully try to keep this thing going. So I know it's been a big rush tonight, but I really enjoyed this evening. It was great fun. And I hope you guys all learned a little bit, and it's going to whet your appetite for how much more you might know in the future and the problems you can solve in your own house and in other people's houses, and help us get towards a net zero by 2050.
And you will get us a link to the book, or you will?
Yes, if I didn't, I will send you a copy of the book. I will send it to you for iPad because most people have iPad. If you don't have an iPad, let me know and I'll send it to you for Kindle. And if neither of those work, I can send it as a PDF file. And if you really want the hard copy, I can send you a hard copy too, but it's much easier for me to send you out the PDF, the electronic ones, and the hard copy does cost me real money, whereas the electronic ones don't. But if you can't stand electronics and you just want to have a book in your hand, which I do, by the way, I'll give it to you. Okay, thank you everyone. It's been really fun tonight. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did.
Nice
Thank
to meet
you.
you all.
Thanks, David.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Right.